Why is it that the very moments we try hardest to avoid, the heartbreak, the failure, the disappointment, are often the ones that shape us the most? We spend much of our lives running from discomfort, building walls against pain as if it were the enemy. But here is a paradox worth sitting with. What if pain is not a punishment but a passage? Picture this. You're standing at the edge of a decision, a relationship crumbling behind you, or perhaps a career path closing its doors. Instinctively, you want to retreat, to numb, to escape into distraction. It feels safer to turn away than to face the sharp sting of loss. But hasn't there been at least one moment in your life when the very wound you feared became the doorway to your growth? Maybe the heartbreak that taught you resilience, or the rejection that forced you to discover another path that was truer to you. We rarely talk about it, but each of us carries scars that have quietly shaped our character. They remind us of the nights we survived when we thought we wouldn't, of the strength that was born not in triumph but in struggle. And yet, whenever a new wave of pain comes, we forget. We rush to push it away as if nothing good could ever grow from it. Sun Tzu, the ancient strategist, once suggested that the place of greatest danger is also the place of greatest opportunity. Could it be that the same principle applies to our inner battles? That the very feelings we dread might hold the seeds of transformation we long for? If you've ever asked yourself why life seems so relentless, or why struggle keeps finding its way back to you, stay with me. Because maybe the truth isn't that life is cruel, but that life is offering us something more valuable than comfort, the possibility of becoming someone deeper, wiser, and stronger than we were before. And before we move on, let me ask you to leave in the comments. What has been the hardest experience you faced that, looking back, changed you in ways you never expected? Share it below. And of course, if reflections like this speak to you, hit the like button and subscribe. Because together we are exploring the terrain where struggle meets transformation. What if instead of running from pain, we leaned into it with curiosity? Imagine for a moment that every difficulty you faced wasn't an interruption to your life, but part of the very curriculum of becoming who you are meant to be. How different would your story feel if you could look at pain, not as an enemy to conquer, but as a teacher waiting to reveal something essential? Think about the struggles that still echo in your memory, the argument that left you sleepless, the rejection letter you couldn't bear to read twice, the silence of someone you loved who never came back. In those moments, it felt as though the world was shrinking, that your horizon had collapsed into darkness. But now try to imagine if you had seen those very moments as thresholds, doors that opened, not closed. What kind of courage would have been born in you if you had stepped through them with eyes wide open? Close your eyes and envision a different version of yourself, one who no longer fears the sting of discomfort, one who can sit with the ache of disappointment and ask, "What is this pain here to teach me?" This version of you doesn't waste energy building defenses against inevitable hardship. Instead, they learn to carry it with dignity, to transform wounds into wisdom. The truth is, pain will always come. None of us are exempt. But the question is, what if the way you meet it could completely reshape the story of your life? Imagine the freedom of no longer being controlled by the fear of what might hurt you. Imagine how much more alive, open, and courageous you would become if you saw every challenge as an invitation rather than a threat. This is not about romanticizing suffering or pretending it is easy. It is about daring to ask a different question. Instead of, "How do I escape this?" try asking, "How do I let this transform me?" That simple shift in perspective could turn what feels like the end into the beginning of something far greater. So as we move forward, keep that image alive. The possibility of becoming someone who does not flee from difficulty, but who embraces it as the very soil where strength, resilience, and character are born. What if that version of you is not far away, but already waiting on the other side of your pain? We live in a culture that glorifies comfort. Advertisements promise ease, apps promise instant gratification, and social media curates a world where pain seems almost like a mistake to be avoided at all costs. The unspoken message is clear. If you are hurting, you must be doing something wrong. But here's the disruption. The pursuit of constant comfort doesn't make us stronger. It makes us fragile. Think about it. When was the last time growth came from a season of ease? Did wisdom come from a vacation? or from the long nights when you questioned everything? Did resilience come from applause, or from the silence after failure? The truth that few are willing to admit is this: pain is not the interruption of life. It is life working on you. To reject it is to reject the very process of becoming human. Here's the irony. We flee from pain because we want to feel alive, but it is often pain that sharpens our sense of aliveness. The sleepless night after a heartbreak, the anxious wait for news that could change everything, the confrontation that left us trembling. These are moments when we are most awake, raw, and exposed to the reality of existence. To numb them is to numb life itself. The great mistake is believing that comfort is the opposite of suffering. In reality, comfort can be the opposite of growth. Pain does not come to destroy us, though it feels that way in the moment. It comes to dismantle illusions, to strip away what is false, to reveal what truly matters. That is why Sun Tzu's insight is so powerful. The very battlefield we fear may be the place where our deepest victories are won. So what if the next time pain knocks on your door, instead of asking, "Why me?" you asked, "Why now? What is this moment demanding of me?" That shift in questioning transforms pain from a curse into a compass. It stops being a random cruelty and becomes part of a hidden order guiding you toward maturity. Most people will keep running, trying to outpace their suffering. But maybe the disruptive truth is this: only those who have the courage to stop, to face it, and to learn from it will truly know what it means to be free. This idea, that pain is not merely an obstacle, but a teacher, has been echoed by some of the greatest minds in history. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus, who lived much of his life as a slave, once said, "Difficulties are the things that show what men are." He understood that character is not forged in luxury but in fire, and he was not alone. Friedrich Nietzsche, centuries later, declared, "To live is to suffer, to survive is to find some meaning in the suffering." These are not empty words, but insights born out of the observation of human struggle across generations. Even in literature, we see this pattern repeated. Consider the journeys of heroes in the great epics, from Odysseus navigating storms and temptations, to Dante descending into hell before he could ascend into paradise. Every transformative story has one common thread. Pain is the initiator of wisdom. Without it, there is no depth, no awakening, no real transformation. Pain strips away the unnecessary, forcing us to confront what truly matters. Modern psychology also confirms what these ancient voices intuited. Research on post-traumatic growth shows that individuals who face profound adversity often develop deeper empathy, stronger resilience, and a clearer sense of purpose than those who have lived largely unchallenged lives. The very stress that threatens to break us can also catalyze our greatest breakthroughs, if we are willing to engage with it rather than escape it. This is why Sun Tzu's wisdom, though born in the context of warfare, resonates so deeply with the battles we fight within. He observed that where the danger is greatest, the opportunity is also greatest. Applied to the soul, it suggests that where the pain is most acute, the potential for transformation is also the strongest. This is not just poetic, it is practical. It reframes our suffering not as senseless cruelty, but as a field where inner strength can be cultivated. So the next time pain enters your life, remember, you are not alone in this paradox. From philosophers to poets to psychologists, the consensus is clear. Pain is not an accident. It is a catalyst. It is not here to ruin you, but to refine you. The question is whether you will allow it to do its work. One of the reasons pain feels unbearable is not only the wound itself, but the stories we secretly attach to it. When life hurts, most of us immediately interpret the pain as proof that something is wrong with us, that we are unworthy, unlucky, or somehow cursed. We confuse suffering with failure, and this invisible dynamic quietly sabotages us because it convinces us to add shame on top of struggle. Think about how many times you've whispered to yourself, "If I were stronger, this wouldn't affect me," or "If I had made better choices, I wouldn't be in this position." These silent judgments deepen the suffering far more than the event itself. The heartbreak, the rejection, the loss, they wound us once. But the hidden story we tell ourselves about what this pain means, that wounds us again and again. Here lies the trap. We believe the goal of life is to avoid suffering. So every time it arrives, we feel betrayed, as though life has broken its promise. Yet suffering is not a betrayal. It is part of the design. Every human being, without exception, walks through it. The hidden problem is not pain itself, but our refusal to accept that pain is woven into the fabric of existence. And there is another subtle dynamic at play. In our attempts to avoid pain, we often numb ourselves with distractions, endless scrolling, shallow pleasures, busyness that keeps us from sitting in silence. But avoidance does not dissolve suffering. It only delays it, sometimes multiplying it. By trying to run, we end up carrying heavier burdens because the lessons remain unlearned. Pain ignored often returns disguised as anxiety, restlessness, or even bitterness toward life itself. Here's the paradox. When you stop running and dare to face pain directly, it often shrinks. The anticipation of suffering is usually far greater than the experience of it. By naming it, by allowing yourself to feel it without judgment, you discover that pain loses its power to define you. It becomes not a verdict but a mirror, reflecting truths about who you are, what you value, and what needs to change. So the hidden problem is not simply that we suffer, but that we misunderstand suffering. We see it as an enemy, when in fact it is an invitation. And until we uncover this invisible dynamic, we will keep running in circles, carrying the same wounds, wondering why we never truly heal. Sometimes a truth needs to be said not in long explanations, but in sharp, unforgettable words that cut through the noise. So let me give you a few truths about pain that you can carry with you. Pain is not proof of weakness. It is proof you are alive. Running from suffering does not save you. It starves you of growth. Comfort builds habits. Pain builds character. The wound you hide today may be the wisdom you offer tomorrow. Every scar is a line in the story of becoming who you are. These statements are not cliches. They are hard-won insights, born from what every human eventually discovers. Life is not meant to be painless. A life without suffering would also be a life without depth, without resilience, without the richness of meaning. Imagine a novel where the hero never faces conflict, or a song that never touches sorrow. Would it move you? Would it change you? Probably not. Here's another way to see it. Pain carves space inside us. Space for empathy, space for humility, space for courage. Without it, our hearts would remain shallow, our vision narrow, our character untested. Pain enlarges the soul in a way comfort never can. So when the next difficulty comes, hold on to these truths. Let them become anchors in the storm. This pain will not destroy me, it is here to shape me. My suffering is not meaningless, it is pointing me toward something deeper. I will not waste my wounds. I will let them become wisdom. Say these aloud if you must. Write them down. Keep them close. Because when pain strikes, the mind will try to convince you that nothing good can come from it. And in those moments, you will need words like these to remind you of a larger truth. Pain is not the end of the story. It is the place where the real story begins. Here is the paradox. The very thing we spend our lives avoiding is the very thing we most desperately need. We flee from pain in search of happiness, yet it is often through pain that happiness gains its depth. Without loss, how could joy ever feel sacred? Without failure, how could success ever taste real? We think of life in opposites: pleasure versus suffering, joy versus sorrow, strength versus weakness. But human experience is never that cleanly divided. The truth is that these opposites are not enemies but partners. Sorrow sharpens joy. Weakness awakens strength. Brokenness clears the way for wholeness. It is not either or, it is both and. Consider this. If you protect yourself so completely that nothing can wound you, you will also protect yourself from being deeply moved, deeply connected, deeply alive. By closing yourself off to pain, you also close yourself off to love. By insulating yourself from failure, you also insulate yourself from growth. The shield that blocks suffering also blocks meaning. This is why some of the wisest people you've met often carry both gravity and gentleness. Their laughter is not shallow, it carries the echo of tears. Their strength is not harsh, It carries the memory of fragility. They have learned that life is not about erasing one side of the coin, but holding both in balance. Philosophers have long pointed to this paradox. The Stoics spoke of amor fati, the love of one's fate. It is not about loving only the pleasurable parts of life, but embracing the whole, including the hardships. To love fate is to say yes even to suffering, because you recognize it as inseparable from the richness of existence. So here is the challenge. What if pain and joy are not two roads, but one? What if the path to your deepest fulfillment passes directly through the valleys you wish to avoid? To resist one is to resist both. To accept one is to accept life itself. The paradox becomes clear. We run from pain to save our lives, but it is by facing pain that life is actually given back to us, more raw, more real, and infinitely more profound. If embracing pain sounds heavy, let's shift the lens for a moment. What is on the other side of it? Why should anyone dare to lean into discomfort rather than run from it? The answer is simple, yet profound. Transformation. The reward of facing pain is not merely survival. It is becoming someone new, someone deeper, someone freer. Think about resilience. It is not born in ease. It is forged in fire. Each time you face hardship honestly, you become less afraid of the next one. Fear loses its grip because you realize you have already endured, already grown, already risen from what you once thought would break you. The personal reward is not that life becomes easier. It is that you become stronger. There is also clarity. Pain strips away illusions and distractions, sharpening your vision of what truly matters. A health scare often wakes people up to the value of time. A heartbreak reveals what love is and what it is not. A failure uncovers whether your ambitions were driven by vanity or genuine purpose. When pain clears the fog, you see your life with sharper eyes. That clarity itself is a priceless gift. And perhaps most importantly, there is empathy. Those who have suffered deeply often become the very people who can comfort and guide others through suffering. Pain teaches compassion in a way no book or lecture ever could. When you have walked through the fire, you can sit beside someone else in theirs without judgment, without fear. You become a source of strength not just for yourself, but for others. So here lies the reward. By facing pain instead of fleeing, you do not just survive it, you are transformed by it. You gain courage, clarity, empathy, and depth of character. You become the kind of person others look to in times of chaos, the kind of person who can carry not only their own burdens, but also offer hope to those around them. The promise is not comfort. The promise is meaning. And meaning, once discovered, is what makes life not only bearable, but beautiful. When you let pain do its work, the reward is nothing less than becoming the person you were always meant to be. To tie all of this together, let's ground our reflections in a deeper framework. Philosophers, psychologists, and even military strategists like Sun Tzu have long recognized that struggle is not an accident. It is an essential part of human development. If we map these insights together, a clear structure emerges. Pain, when confronted, moves us through three stages: exposure, transformation, and integration. First comes exposure. Pain reveals what we often hide from ourselves. It unmasks our illusions, showing us where our attachments lie, what fears still govern us, and what values are truly non-negotiable. This is the battlefield Sun Tzu spoke of, the vulnerable space where our defenses are stripped away, leaving us face to face with reality. Then comes transformation. Here is where the real work begins. Transformation happens not by bypassing the wound, but by engaging with it, asking what it demands of us, what it is teaching us, what new strength it calls forth. This is where resilience and wisdom are forged. As Carl Jung observed, there is no coming to consciousness without pain. Growth is not an addition to who we are, it is the reshaping of who we are through what we endure. Finally comes integration. This is where pain ceases to be just an experience and becomes part of our story. It is no longer something that defines us as victims, but something that refines us into guides, mentors, or simply more compassionate human beings. Integration is the stage where scars become symbols, not of defeat but of survival and meaning. Psychology calls this process post-traumatic growth. Philosophy calls it the formation of character. Literature portrays it as the hero's journey. Different languages, but the same truth. Pain is the crucible where the human spirit is tested, reshaped, and strengthened. When we understand this framework, pain stops feeling like chaos. It gains coherence. Instead of asking, "Why me?" we begin to ask, "Where am I in this process? Am I still in exposure? Am I allowing transformation? Am I integrating this into a wiser self?" These questions turn suffering into a path, and that is the essence of the framework. Pain is not random punishment. It is a structured, though difficult, path toward becoming fully human. To reject it is to stay unfinished. To embrace it is to move closer to the wholeness we seek. So here we are, standing at the threshold of an uncomfortable but liberating truth. Pain is not the enemy. It is the sculptor. It carves, it chisels, it breaks away what is unnecessary, until what remains is a version of you that is more resilient, more compassionate, and more alive than before. We spend so much of our energy trying to run from what hurts, yet deep down, we know every moment that has shaped us most profoundly was born out of struggle. The question is no longer whether pain will come. It will. The question is, when it does, will you flee from it, or will you allow it to transform you? Will you continue building walls against it, or will you let it carve space in your soul for depth, for empathy, for wisdom? Sun Tzu saw it clearly. Where the danger is greatest, so too is the opportunity. Apply this not to a battlefield, but to your own inner life. Where you hurt most, there lies the seed of your greatest transformation. Where you resist most, there lies the key to your freedom. So I leave you with this invitation. Stop running. Sit with your pain. Ask it what it has come to teach you. And trust that, though it feels unbearable in the moment, it may be the very force shaping you into someone you never imagined you could become. Now I want to hear from you. In the comments below, share one moment of pain that, though difficult, changed you for the better. Your story might be exactly what someone else needs to read today. And if this reflection has resonated with you, if it has given you even a glimpse of a new way to see your struggles, please hit the like button and subscribe. This channel exists to walk with you through these inner battles, to remind you that you are not alone, and that every scar can be a step toward wisdom. Because in the end, the truth is simple. Pain does not come to destroy you. It comes to make you whole. And if you let it, it will.